I had a question about you. That's a more of a current event question. I want to get your perspective on this because, shout out to Deshaun Miller. I believe it was his page. He had a live yesterday that I was watching, and he talked briefly about a story in the news, right, where the banks have gotten approval to have custody of people's cryptocurrency. What do you think about that? Like the banks, because the banks for the longest time were telling us, hey, this isn't real. This is BS. But slowly but surely, they find their way into space. And yesterday, and I did a little bit of research after I saw him mention it on his show. And what was interesting is like the lead counsel from Coinbase now works for the government. Like Coinbase and the government getting like a little too close for me, for one. That's one part.
They definitely kissing cousins.
Yeah, so that's the part. But what do you think about the banks, man? Because the banks, all right, so we can talk about this on two sides, right? From the crypto side, but also as investors. I know that, we believe in investing in banks because they are the cobalt. What do you think about what they're doing in this space though?
I mean, they do what they always done. They depressed the price. They told you not to buy it, and then they got involved in it, and then they set up the infrastructure, then they bought it, and now they're gonna charge you the upcharge to get involved. So before they set the whole thing up, you still got time to get involved before they set it all up. You know what I mean? But that's how business has been operating. Anything that's new, they tell you that is not finished yet, is not a product, it don't have no market penetration, so you shouldn't get involved. Then they go buy it up, they create the market penetration, they create the market for it, and then they upcharge you for it. So yeah, do it now before they start the upcharge, because at a certain point it's going to reach a certain market penetration, and then you're not going to be able to get involved at all. And so, people think it's black market and all this other stuff. Man, listen, ain't nothing more black market than dollar bills. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, ain't nothing more black. Man, listen, one of the reasons I don't want the digital dollar to be complete is because I don't really want the black market to go away, because a lot of the businesses that, in the hood is black market businesses, and people is exchanging cash. And so
listen, man,
if that goes away,
I saw something last year that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And I think it was half trolling. I saw some cats out on I'm not gonna name where, but I was outside. They was rolling dice and they was using Cash App. And I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, oh, this is what y'all do now? Yeah, y'all just gonna leave
Never seen that, and I hope to never ever see that again in my entire life.
It's hilarious. But the point is, we are moving to a digital space, right? Where there may not be any dollar. But you're right about with the black market. But again, it's all about who controls the currency.
Yeah, man.
But I think that the study of banks in general is one of the more interesting things when you look at every space, how banks operate within real estate, how banks operate within investment banking, how they handle currency, which is why we always talk about the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. But there's a number of books. But just the study of banks, it will tell you a lot about this country, about how it works, about who really runs the country. And that's why Corey calls them the cobalt. Like, you can't beat them, because they figure out ways to always stay in power.
It's the cabal, man. It's cabal, CABAL, man. The cabal, like they just everywhere. They do everything. They work. They run in unison, and then they put you. They on your head, man. Like they gangster. They like, you want to talk about real gangster stuff? They into the heavy, real, super gangster stuff, man.
So with that being said, as investors out here and people watching and tuning in, like we'll be tuning in later, as investors, you need to start thinking like a bank, right? Unless we're going to have some revolution and change our entire system. But outside of that, you need to start thinking the way bankers think, right? Which is about leverage, which is about opportunity, and how to take advantage of these things, right? Which leads us to the topic at hand, investing versus lottery tickets, right? So one of the courses that we have in By the Hood University is our Intro to the Stock Market course. And this is for someone who really has no experience with the stock market. So you get the questions run the gamut. I mean, you get the questions as very simple as what is a brokerage account, but we also have a upper level course, which is analysis, which is more about how to break down a company. But one of the things that I find in working with people that are just getting into becoming investors is they're looking for lottery tickets. They're not really looking to learn the fundamentals, how to break down a company, how to make a solid investment, how to hold the company long term, how to actually become a shareholder. Because we talk about things like actually sitting on calls, studying companies. And what we find a lot of times is people are just looking for lottery tickets to the point where they'll say something like, I'm just going to give you my money. Can you invest it for me? Or just give me give me a stock tip. And we want you to understand how to do it, not just to give you tips. Yeah. So understand that an investor and someone just looking for the next big thing to blow is kind of different. So what's your perspective on that topic right there?
I think investors are people who make slow money. Like, speculators make fast money. They also lose money fast. Investors use the power of compound interest over time to build dynasties and fortunes and wealth, right? Um, I mean, you can make your money blow fast investing if you hit the right investment at the right time, but the goal is to always get the long money, the long-term money with investing. And so, speculating is what you do when you run options or you swing trade. So I say any investment that lasts less than a year is a speculation. You know
but
what
even
I mean?
with that, right? Even with that, with options, right? Sometimes people are still looking for lottery tickets and that they don't want to do any sort of fundamental or technical analysis to make a play. They're just out there, shooting for lottery tickets. So I find that even within like derivatives or things that are more of a speculation, they're still looking for lottery tickets, and which is why you find people buying stuff at low price.
Yeah, I mean, I got some, uh, I don't know, man. Like I got a heavy gambler side to me, so I always keep a little bit of that going. But with the very big, gigantic bulk of my money goes to my investment pieces, right? And so I'll add new companies in. I'll take companies out after a while. Like I had some speculative companies in my original investment portfolio that I got rid of, even though they were doing very well. At a certain point, I was just like, I don't really want to be dealing with them because I don't want to sell them. So I had some non-dividend payers that did very well. Like in my original investment portfolio, I had companies like AMD and Zillow and a couple other ones that did well and actually boosted my portfolio. Like my percentages was out of the off the chains, but looking forward, I was like, I don't want my kids to have to sell those investments to get the money from them. I want my kids to get the money from the actual investment, not to have to sell the investment to get. I don't want to be a wholesaler, man. I want to be as far as that. As far as that, I want to be a landlord. As far as
and that's a conversation that me and you have had before. Like when you really get into the math of it all, about growth versus dividend. I think the answer, and this is my personal opinion, is a combination of the two. And the reason I say that is because you can make the argument mathematically that sometimes when you take a dividend, you lower your chance of growth. Like so that's why people look for both. They look for dividend growth stocks. But you can also make the argument mathematically that's better to leave it within the company. So, and a great example of that will be Amazon. If Amazon were to pay out a dividend throughout these years as opposed to reinvesting in the businesses, would Amazon be $3,000 a share?
Not even close.
Yeah. So I mean, but again, to me, that's why it's more.
But that's not true. That's not true, right? Because really, Apple could be a $3,000 or $4,000 stock, but they did stock splits. So if Apple wanted to be a $3,000 or $4,000 share company, they could be.
But those are two different businesses and two different business models. Amazon was able to acquire a Zappos. They were able to acquire multiple companies because they had the cash on hand to do so, as opposed to paying it out. Apple was already established because Apple didn't pay dividends when Jobs was here at all.
No, they didn't. They didn't. They didn't start paying dividends till 2012. So that's why you won't find them on any kind of dividend aristocrats list or any of that, because they didn't start paying dividends till 2012.
But the point is, and you can go back and look at the math on this. Amazon would not have been able to make the acquisitions, even the acquisition they just made this year, with the electric car company, because they have the cash on hand to do so, because they don't pay out. They keep everything in and reinvest it, right? Which is why in certain instances, it's better to have that money there if you have someone that's going to manage the money the right way. Now, if you have a CEO that's just out there like pissing money away and not doing the right thing, but this is when it comes to the idea of knowing your company, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I talk to students about, and I tell them, listen, a portfolio doesn't mean that you have to have 600 things, but if you're
Nope.
buying individual stock, tell me who the CEO of the company is. If you don't know who the CEO of the company is you're buying, you probably shouldn't hold that company, because you need to be all up in that company as if you're an owner of the company, and not that the stock is just something that's on the ticker. People look at stocks like they're just tickers when they're actually ownership in the company. We have a comment on Facebook from he said, just like they say Haiti is a shithole and go and buy acres of property. Same thing, right? That's that COBOL behavior, right? And I think that goes on within our neighborhoods as well. That's just my opinion, that, you know, certain things are allowed to happen for people to take advantage of it. But anyway,
Yeah.
back to the thing.
Yeah. So investment. The lottery ticket thing is literal. Like, so when you in the hood, right? So I grew up in the hood, right? And so you seen investors, like you seen people who get out every morning, sweep their front yard. You know, they buy. You know, they buy into the businesses, into the neighborhood. They you know, they do everything to build the neighborhood. Then you see some people who literally go to the corner store and play the lottery and hope they get rich, like. And so it's a dichotomy, you know, that we need to think about, right? Because there's nothing wrong with gambling, uh, if you have the numbers. Like what most people don't know about gamblers is they play by the numbers. And so
Mm-hmm.
for them, they don't feel like they're gambling because they
Yeah.
understand the numbers behind it. That's why, you know, when you see these top tier players in poker, like both me and you play poker, right? And
Mm-hmm.
most people think poker is gambling, but poker is not gambling if you know the numbers.
It's math. But poker is the one game that's a little bit different than everything else, because like the house is still going to always win because they're going to get their rake. But outside of that, you're for the most part, you're going against other individuals. So I always look at poker as being a little bit different, but because poker is math. But the thing about a casino, and I think I forgot what's the guy that said this. His quote was, "The only way to win at a casino is to own the casino."
Yep.
It was one of the big tycoons of Vegas that said that. I think they got it on Sands. But anyway, but listen, I grew up in the hood too, man. I know, like, listen, dollar straight, dollar box. If you've never been sent to the store to play a dollar straight and a dollar box, then, you know, we can't relate to each other, man. I'm
At
about that,
all.
like, or 50-50. Sometimes when the bread ain't right, yo, send me to the
Yeah.
store 50-50. You know what I mean? And a pack of Newports.